Now, in March last year, South African women were promised a bold 21 billion rand plan to eradicate gender-based violence and femicide by 2030. A national council on GBV was to be formulated within 6 months to oversee its implementation. Now, the Uyinene Mrwetyana Foundation has partnered together with First for Women to keep up the pressure on policymakers regarding the implementation of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Despite initial promises that a national council would be set up by December, women's rights groups say the government is still a long way off from fulfilling its promise. Joining us to discuss this is Masibulele Buso, who is the Managing Director of the Uyinene Mrwetyana Foundation, and Suegnette van Wyngaard, who is the head of First for Women, A warm welcome to both our guests. Thank you so much for joining us on today's program. Masibulele, I think I'm going to start with you. I think the frustration on the issue of a GBV in South Africa is quite palpable right now, made all the more discouraging, really, by the endless stream of cases of violence against women and femicide. But I want to get a sense from you, where are we as a country in responding to this crisis?
Thank you again for having us today. I think we are, as a country, very far from, responding properly to gender-based violence. I think civil society is doing more than the government. I think as civil society, we're realizing that, the responsibility that the government is supposed to be taking is left on us. So civil society is kind of getting up and seeing that, we are alone in this. And so we are making strides as organizations, small organizations and NGOs and businesses that cannot tolerate gender-based violence anymore. And so as civil society, I think we're making headways, but the government is far, far, far behind. I think the main problem as well is that the government is not taking us seriously. It's as if they're not seeing that people are dying every day. It's like they're not seeing that women are being raped every day, and the perpetrators of this violence are still walking around in society. It's quite disheartening.
Masibulele, you've just described for us the climate that we find ourselves in today. But Suegnette, I want to ask you, you head an insurance company that's tailored to the needs of the South African woman. I'd imagine that safety is often a top priority for your clients. Would you say that women in this country generally feel unsafe, in fact, perhaps live with that fear on a daily basis?
Without a doubt. There's no question about it that every single day women in this country and children get up and don't know, what is going to happen today to them. And that is why part of our promise to our customers and greater society is that their safety is our key priority. And that's why First for Women has been fighting GBV since 2005 through our First for Women Foundation. But you're absolutely right. Safety is key. And unfortunately, like Marcy said, we cannot rely on government to do that. And that is why civil society and organizations like First for Women has taken it up upon themselves to make work and to put programs in place to support our women in this country, including our own First for Women customers.
Right. Masibulele, I want to come back to you, because we keep talking about how government has essentially let us down, really, and is dropping the ball when it comes to the issue of gender-based violence. But that also just calls me to question, have we completely delegated all responsibility in dealing with this crisis to the government? And in a way, made it a government problem, devoid, really, of society's own required response to the crisis?
I think GBV is quite a complex issue. It's so multifaceted that we have to look at it in different angles. Definitely the government has a majority of responsibility to play because they are the decision makers, the policy makers that are responsible in making sure that communication about how seriously we're taking gender-based violence is basically on them, on their shoulders. I think civil society, sometimes we underestimate how much we can do. We are doing a lot already, but I think we underestimate how much we can do to make sure that we're responding to gender-based violence. There needs to be a social consequence in terms of when we're looking at gender-based violence. We can't allow rapists and murderers back in our society like nothing happened. So we do also play a huge part in making sure that survivors of gender-based violence are taken care of and are believed. But also, I think the majority of responsibility lies on government in making sure that the perpetrators are kind of held accountable and responsible for the crimes that they commit.
Certainly. I want to talk about this partnership, right, between First for Women and the Uyinene Mrwetyana Foundation. Suegnette, in partnering with the foundation, I think you are certainly leading the way in showing business, for instance, how they can be significant role players in the fight against the GBV. What's your message to your counterparts, to your peers on this particular issue? Because we can talk about how we all need to mobilize and galvanize, but really it isn't until we see organizations like yourself taking the lead, showing how it can be done, that we can actually picture or at least envision what can be done, what can be achieved.
You're right in saying that, and it really is the responsibility of civil society, of big companies, to make sure that gender-based violence is not a footnote on an agenda, but is part of the agenda, and that they reach out to foundations like the Uyinene Foundation, take hands, and put a collaborative effort into place to speak up collectively, because it's all the voices collectively that will make the difference. And what we're doing this year with the Uyinene Foundation on the back of the Postcard to Parliament campaign is we created a virtual website where every single person in this country can log on to and submit a virtual postcard to Parliament to keep them accountable for the promises they made. The theme this year is from awareness to accountability. And it really is on companies, on businesses out there and the greater society to put their voices to this same campaign in order for us to, like Marcy said, it feels like government is not hearing us, that they're not seeing what's happening. But, you know, by submitting these postcards and writing these stories, it becomes very real and we cannot be ignored.
I love it, because it does seem that in your partnership with the foundation, you are acting as a link, certainly, between communities and policymakers. A lot of times, I think communities feel estranged from those individuals or those organizations that can effect the kind of change we want to see. In closing, Masibulele, we're still marking 16 days of activism. We're still in the midst of the campaign. What more can we do to start clamoring back all that we've lost as a country as a result of GBV?
I think that's a difficult question. I think we can start by making 16 days of activism 365 days of activism. I think we can start there, taking gender-based violence seriously. As the second pandemic, I think we need to take gender-based violence as serious as we have COVID-19. I think also it's important that we also as civil society keep government accountable, challenge them on the inaction that we have been seeing, challenge them on the promises that they've made that they have not kept. I think also as civil society, it's important that we start conversations with the young children that we're raising, our spouses, our friends, keep each other accountable and call each other out. Definitely, there must be a social consequence. We can't keep allowing rapists and murderers back in society like nothing happened. So it is up to us to make sure that the change that we want to see comes to light.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. That was Masibulele Buso, Managing Director of the Uyinene Mrwetyana Foundation, and Suegnette van Wyngaard, who is head of First for Women.